Restaurant workers of Reddit. What do customers do or say that you secretly hate? Story 1. I was a bartender at a divish bar years ago, and one customer insisted on calling all the bartenders Easy Money. I actually found it kind of funny and unusual, but it enraged one of the other bartenders. Anyway, one night one thing led to another, and they started throwing what I would very loosely call blows at each other. No one was hurt due to their poor striking skills. Anyway, I never saw the customer again and went back to my hometown like 10 years later to learn that bartender had actually bought the bar. I walked in and said, "Hey, Easy Money, get me a fucking beer." He didn't recognize me, and I swear he almost swung at me. We laughed about it, and he talked about how he hated being called chief, boss, etc. He ended up buying the bar so he could decide who he allowed in. Story 2. People letting their kids throw shit everywhere and not even attempt to clean up after themselves. I worked as a waitress for 6/8 months, and it was my biggest peeve. Now, when I go to eat with my toddler, I always make sure to clean up everything after we eat, including the floor. Kids are messy. Story 3. I worked as a server for a couple of months. The customers that annoyed me were the ones that wanted to argue with me about the pricing of the item or how a particular dish is made. I have no control over any of that, and so it's pointless for me to stand there receiving a lecture about that when I have so many other tables I have to get to. Story 4. Honestly, the amount of men who think women will find it cute when they harass them is astounding. Multiple times a day, I would get questions like, "Are you on the menu?" or "How much for a drink of you?" or asking for something that I need to bend over to get and then telling me they only wanted it to get a better look at my butt. I could honestly write a book about all the inappropriate shit I experienced while waitressing. Also, the fancy ladies, who intentionally humiliate waitresses by talking about them in front of them. I had this one woman bring her daughter in when I was working a late shift at one of my 2 jobs, while also going to school, because I had just lost my mom and was trying to make enough to not have to sleep on friends' couches and live out of my car. She sat down at a table that hadn't been cleared, without waiting to be seated. And when I came over to clear the table, she says to her kid, "This is why you need to get good grades. If you don't, you'll just end up like her, cleaning up other people's shit for pennies." I just put down the menus and walked to the kitchen and broke down crying. The owner happened to be there by chance, and when he heard what she had said to me, he stormed out there and told her that he didn't want business from her kind and told her to get out and never come back. She tried to argue that the customer was always right, and he just said that he had customers in the thousands, but good staff was 1 in 1,000, and he would not tolerate this kind of behavior against his employees. I'm still thankful to this day, 20 years later, for how he handled this situation and defended me. Story 5. I was a waitress in a small cafe when I was 17/18, but I've always looked younger than my actual age. The amount of older men, I'm talking 60 plus, that would stare at me and flirt at me in front of their wives was gross. One time I walked past one of these men on the way to the kitchen. He gripped my upper arm, pulled me down, and went, "Your soup is shit." The soup probably was bad, but it was the strength in his grip and the way he was willing to do that to a young girl that really freaked me out. Story 6. In my time working food service, there was really only one thing that got under my skin, and that's people who bring their children or dogs in and let them completely go butt-fuck wild. I get it, sometimes they require a little extra patience, but when they start becoming so unruly that it bothers everyone in the place, you need to step outside and correct the situation. But some people are so selfish that they don't care if they're ruining everyone else's time. Story 7. I work at Five Guys, and I won't deny the prices are really jacked up, but that has got nothing to do with me. I've had several say to me when I'm taking their order, "Why do you raise the prices this high?" Or when I tell the total of the order, they are convinced I added fraudulent items to their order, making it that high, like they can't look at the screen in front of them and do the math. Story 8. The ones who walk into a busy room full of happy people eating, then decide they're the only ones there. They'll be served immediately, no waiting, then barely tip because they're completely unreasonable. I had this a-hole, twice. Comes in with a crowd and wants to be Big Papi Fun Times guy ordering a round of shots for the table. Buddy, get in line. There's 2 tables waiting to have orders taken. A table needs their food run. Those guys want a 3rd round of beers and ketchup? No. You want bottle service? Not here. Story 9. Sometimes when it's not busy, people walk in and sit at the only table in the whole fucking place that isn't cleaned. Like plates and glasses left from the previous visitors. What in the actual fuck are those people thinking? It's not that we're a small place with only 2 tables or something. We seat around 300 people. Story 10. Not something I hated but was conflicted over. Obviously hating the whistling or clicking of fingers. I happily told people my name so they could call me. In the UK, we don't introduce ourselves in a lot of places or wear name badges. No problem with people giving me a shout, but I detested it when people overused my name too, especially older men. Creepy AF. Story 11. If your server drops the bill, don't sit and talk for an hour and a half before paying it. Your server just wants to collect the signed receipt and go home. They could give a fuck if you sit and use the table for another 3 hours. Pay it, sign it, leave it on the edge so the server can grab without interrupting you. Sitting on an unpaid bill isn't some hack to get you more time at the table. Story 12. Show up at 6 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday and act like having to be on a wait list is some sort of hate crime. Also, acting like anyone in the restaurant gives a *T if you know the owner. Also, if you go to a restaurant once every 2 months, don't act like you are a regular, even if it has been every 2 months for a decade. We have customers who come in every day and are nice people and never mention it, so deal with it. Story 13. In my state, a lot of the older generation have this stupid bit they do in establishments. They will take a bite of something and immediately say, "Oh, that's disgusting." What they mean is, "That's absolutely delicious." If a server cones around and asks how it was, they will very seriously be told, "It was horrible," or "We hated it," and then the table will kiki about it. It drives me fucking crazy. I lived in a different state for nearly a decade and did not see this being pulled there. Story 14. I agree with a lot of the other takes in this thread and haven't seen this one yet. People who order alcoholic drinks and make a comment about "make it strong for me." If you ask them if they'd like a double, they'll say no when they realize that's an upcharge. They just want it made strong for them, as if you two are friends and you owe them some sort of favor. A lot of these same folk complain they can't taste the alcohol in their drink and sometimes get even angrier. I know you want the most bang for your buck, but the restaurant bar is also considering one, not over-serving you in 1 drink and 2, making a drink that doesn't taste like shit. Sometimes they'd order a drink with no ice, thinking that was some cheat code to getting more liquor, and then get upset the drink just comes out to them in a smaller glass. I promise you there is whiskey in the whiskey and Coke you ordered. It is plenty strong. If you have 3 of those, you shouldn't drive. If it was strong enough you could taste the house whiskey, it wouldn't taste great with your meal. If you want a strong drink at a cheap price, you'll need to pick up a bottle of Jim Beam on your way home, because no restaurant is going to charge you $5 for an illegal pour of 4+ ounces of house liquor into a single beverage. How sad is your life that you can't pour your own drinks and you want to yell at the front of house the drinks they poured for you aren't strong enough? These folks never tip well, if at all either. I know tipping culture sucks, but the person bringing you your drink can't help that. Don't make them suffer because your gin and tonic wasn't strong enough to start a car. If you went out with the intention of ordering food and alcohol, then you'd think you'd have money for a tip. If you were truthfully hurting for money so bad you couldn't tip, then you shouldn't be ordering mixed drinks at an establishment anyways. Story 15. When I was serving, I fucking hated people who asked for things one at a time. "Can you bring us some napkins?" Brings napkins. "And could I get a side of ranch?" Brings ranch. "Oh, can you bring me a water?" Brings water. Takes 2 minutes to greet another table. "Can I just get another thing of ranch?" Story 16. As a restaurant worker, one thing that I secretly hate is when customers snap their fingers or whistle to get my attention. It's incredibly disrespectful and rude. Just a simple "excuse me" or a wave will suffice. It's important to remember that we are here to serve you with a smile, but we are not your personal servants. Respect goes a long way in the service industry. Story 17. I never worked in a restaurant, but what bothers me is going out for dinner with my grandmother. She leaves $1 tip with one of those Jesus booklets. I always have to throw down $1.10 plus after she walks away. It's embarrassing to me when she does that. Then my grandfather isn't very friendly to others in general, so he's snappy at the servers. If you ever have to serve my table while with them, I'm so sorry. Story 18. I don't leave the kitchen ever, but we all hate it when customers decide to come back and tell us what to do. I am sorry the salad bar is out of tomatoes. Yes, we have someone on it. No, I won't leave the line to get them right now. Go back to your table and wait 30 seconds for us to get it done. Or apply at the front if you could do so much better. I get it if you mention it to a passing employee or something, but when you try to come back and yell like you are the boss, we will all shit-talk you the rest of the night. We won't fuck with your food or anything, but we will hate you. Story 19. When you approach the table and they continue to carry on their conversation as if you're not there to serve them. Like, do you want to be served? Because I'm not here to be your personal servant. I legit had a table where I stood there for an entire minute before they paused their conversation. Like at that point, I'm wanting to walk off, but those types of hoity-toity customers will view that as rude. Story 20. Not exactly a restaurant, but I'm a bartender at a local craft brewery. The question I hate the most is when someone asks if a beer is good. There's a few problems with that question. First, I'm not going to tell you that it sucks because I like my job and want to keep it. Second, I may love it, but you may think it's terrible. Third, just ask for a fucking taste. I've stopped answering this question and just pour a splash for people because asking subjective questions is just holding up the line for everyone. Story 21. When you're clearly busy, either by taking another table's order, halfway through making a cocktail, or have both hands completely full, and they rudely interrupt you asking for something, like fully expecting you to drop whatever it is you're doing immediately, because they are the only person in the establishment that matters. Also, third-party app delivery people who shove their phone in your face, worse when you're in the middle of a sentence with an actual customer. Then, they'll get all pissy that the food isn't ready after the order was placed 3 minutes ago, and can't comprehend why you don't know why the order is taking so long, or why you don't know exactly what's happening in the kitchen at all times. Story 22. Not something I hate, but a response to. I worked at a BBQ spot in Panama City when I was younger and very year for our Christmas party. The boss went all out with food, fun, and beverages, but the best part was we would invite vendors and offer them everything for free. But they had to sit for a designated amount of time and play the part of a customer, and we all got turns taking our year-long customer-related frustration out on them. No word were off limit. Funny thing. No vendor ever came back a second year. Always looked forward to those parties. Story 23. I actually used to really hate it when customers would stack their own plates. I know they're trying to be helpful and it comes from a good place, but I know these plates so well and all of the different shape, and I have the stacking down to a science, to make it so that I can take the fewest number of trips to the kitchen, often just one. No customer is ever going to be able to do that, and I'm not going to unstack and restack it in front of you, so it just really interrupts my flow. Thanks, but no thanks. Oh, Story 24. I work at a grocery store, but my department prepares a selection of meals. It drives me crazy how many people can't simply order what's on the menu, but need to have half this and half that, or substitute this for that, or want it prepared a special way. Friend, this is a grocery store with deep fryers. No, I can't make it low sodium or low fat. You'll probably be okay if your fries touch your entree, and no, I can't somehow make your fries not too crispy. Story 25. I once worked the bakery in a Golden Corral, and the amount of gluttony I saw made me rage internally. The difference between the rest of the restaurant and the bakery is that we had to make double the product that the restaurant was producing and had to time our baking perfectly with meal rotations. If food is getting taken too quickly from the line, you better be baking more product. But cakes and other desserts need time to cool before you can frost them, assemble them, or serve them. I could spend hours baking just for people to come and put 3 pieces of cake, 6 cookies, and a half pound of banana pudding onto one plate. Sometimes they'd fill their plates so full that the food would spill over onto the carpet, which you then have to pause whatever you're doing to go clean. Other times you'd see servers in the back just throwing away heaps of food because someone overestimated how much cake a human can actually consume after having 5 plates of regular food. The amount of food waste and overconsumption could feed all of LA's homeless population in one day, and there isn't a thing you can do about it but slave away and make more. Also, interrupting me while I was baking to ask if there was a different kind of cake back in the walk-in, as if the other 4 varieties of cake weren't sufficient enough. I only see chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and cupcakes. Do you have carrot cake back there? Yes, Linda, I am hoarding all the good cakes to myself back here, and it's my evil little secret that I'm keeping from you. Lastly, if you're one of those a-holes that go to restaurants on a holiday because you're not in the mood to cook this year, therefore being the reason why I'm drenched in sweat rather than spending Christmas with my children, don't say smug shit like working hard or hardly working. I'm hardly laughing. I love baking and making people feel good with food, but that industry was exceptionally maddening. Story 26. Don't call the servers buddy or boss or sweetheart, or make little passive-aggressive comments about them not being successful because they work in food service. They are human beings who deserve respect, and some even have college degrees. But we do this work because the pay is better, or we don't like desk jobs, or we just love hospitality and food service. It's exciting and fun for some people. Everyone acts like restaurants are just out of high school, unskilled jobs, but most people cannot do it. You have to be sharp, with a good memory and able to keep cool while multitasking, high emotional intelligence and resilience. I have seen a lot of people quit after a day because they can't handle it. They also can get most day hours off and make all their dollar in a few hours in the evening, as opposed to 9, 5, 8 hours a day. It's extremely physically exhausting running around all night and dealing with people treating them like servants. Also, calm TF down about your weight and tables and extra sauces and mistakes. It's an experience. Relax. You're there to chill with your fam and friends. Story 27. I work at Jersey Mike's. Along with classic checkout lines, the amount of times we get asked for a 6-inch, like at Subway, is insane. Our sizes are posted under every single sandwich on the menu and on the 5-foot meat case they stand in front of. Beyond that, a 6-inch would be less sandwich than a regular, which is 8 inches. It isn't a huge deal, but I think I've heard it over 1,000 times by now. Another thing is topping order. Often they'll say lettuce last or after other ingredients, making the sandwich more difficult to top, or resulting in a mess of lettuce on the line. Another example is that we put mayo and mustard on the top bread, then we can stick pickles and whatnot to it, to make it easier to top. Asking for pickles first then mayo throws off the rhythm and order we have on the line. Story 28. I worked at Starbucks in college, so restaurant adjacent. A small minority of customers were dickheads. They'd come off like they thought they were superior. Tossing their credit card across the counter at us was one behavior that bugged me. If someone acted like a prick, we would draw a penis on the bottom of their cup so that everyone else could see when they raised it to take a drink.